Let's stop sugarcoating the truth. You're not just tired because you've been working hard. The fatigue that's haunting you day after day, that heavy exhaustion sitting in your bones like a silent fog, it's not coming from your job or your chores or the people you think are stressing you out. It's something far more silent and far more dangerous. It's the result of your constant overavailability, the fact that you've been conditioned to always be reachable, always be on, always be responsive. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that being endlessly available was a form of love, a sign of strength, proof that you're reliable, that you care. But it's a lie. A beautiful, convincing lie that's killing your spirit without you even realizing it. You answer every call. You respond to every message. You show up whenever someone needs something. You drop what you're doing for others, even when your own world is falling apart. And in doing that, you slowly vanish. Your value doesn't grow. It erodes. The more accessible you are, the less you're respected. The more you try to prove your worth through constant presence, the more invisible you become. It's a trap dressed as virtue. You think you're building connection, when really you're leaking your essence, drop by drop, into a void that never fills. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you emptied your heart for people who wouldn't even notice if you went silent for a week? How many relationships would still exist if you stopped being the one keeping them alive? There's a harsh reality no one likes to admit. The world values distance. Human psychology is wired to respect boundaries, not submission. What's scarce is prized. What's rare draws attention. What's always there fades into the background. When you stretch yourself thin to be everywhere, for everyone, you lose yourself. And worse, you teach others that your time isn't precious, your energy isn't sacred, your presence is disposable. The more you give without restraint, the more they expect, and the less they value. It's not malice. It's just how people are. And it's a cycle that only breaks when you break it. That uneasy feeling in your chest, that subtle dread every time your phone rings, that sigh you let out before replying to yet another request. It's your soul crying out, begging for boundaries, craving the respect that only comes when you stop giving yourself away for free. You don't have to vanish from the world, but you do need to start drawing a line between what's yours and what you allow the world to take. The people you admire most, the ones whose presence truly commands a room, are not the ones constantly performing for approval. They are the ones who are unapologetic in saying no, firm in their peace, secure in their space. Let me tell you this clearly. Respect is born in the space you defend. If you're always available, you'll be treated like a utility. If you guard your time like it matters, others start to see that it does. You need to stop being afraid to disappoint people who wouldn't hesitate to drain you dry. Disappointing someone by protecting your boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. And the strange, liberating twist is this. The moment you stop trying so hard to be loved, you start becoming magnetic. Because now, your energy isn't diluted, it's focused, it's powerful. You've spent years confusing love with sacrifice. You believed that being there for everyone meant you were strong. But strength isn't found in constant giving. It's found in knowing when to hold back, in saying, this space is mine, and not everything gets to come in. You can love people deeply and still say no. You can care and still disappear when your soul needs silence. And if they truly love you, they will understand. If they don't, they never really loved you. They loved what you gave them. Here's something you might not have considered. True strength is being alone and feeling whole. It's finding comfort in your own silence, peace in your own company. If you always need people around to feel okay, then you're not really okay. You're surviving on borrowed validation. You're outsourcing your worth. And as long as you do that, every ignored message, every cold glance, every absence of response will hurt like a wound. But when you finally understand that your value is intrinsic, that it doesn't shrink when someone doesn't notice, you become untouchable. You need to burn this truth into your mind. Overexposure devalues. Overavailability diminishes. When you say yes to everyone, you're saying no to yourself over and over again. And if you do that long enough, you forget what it feels like to matter. You become a hollow version of what you could be. A ghost that exists for others, but never truly lives for itself. This isn't just about saying no. It's about saying yes to your own peace, your own growth, your own purpose. You are not a vending machine of emotional labor. You are not required to be the answer to everyone else's crisis. You are not obligated to maintain relationships that only function when you're the one holding them together. The day you stop responding immediately, the day you start saying, "I'll get back to you when I'm ready," is the day you begin to reclaim your life. Real freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's having the power to stop doing what's draining you just because you feel guilty not to. And you need to understand this too. Your energy is not renewable on demand. It needs space to regenerate. It needs silence to recalibrate. Every time you pour it into things that don't nourish you, you're borrowing from your future. The calm you sacrifice today will cost you peace tomorrow. The tiredness you ignore will become burnout. You can't be everything for everyone and still be something for yourself. So stop being afraid of creating space. That space isn't emptiness. It's preparation. It's healing. It's becoming. People don't respect what they understand completely. They respect what they have to work to know. They respect mystery. They respect restraint. If you want to be truly seen, stop being constantly visible. Let your absence speak sometimes. Let them wonder where you went. That wondering is power. It means they've noticed your silence more than they noticed your noise. And that kind of attention, that's the real kind. The kind you don't have to beg for. The kind that stays long after you've left the room. So stop running to answer every knock. Stop rushing to fill every silence. Let the world wait. Let the people around you learn that your time is not a river they can wade in whenever they want. It's a lake that stays still, calm, reserved, until you decide to share it. This isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's what happens when you finally realize that you're not just worthy. You're sacred. And sacred things are never up for constant grabs. They're cherished. They're approached with reverence. This shift is radical. It will feel uncomfortable at first. You've been trained to think that silence means something is wrong, that pulling back is cold. But the truth is, silence is sometimes the loudest form of self-respect, and pulling back is the only way to see who actually comes forward. The world will push you to keep talking, keep showing, keep giving, but the real ones, the ones who see you, they'll never ask you to burn yourself to keep them warm. Let me tell you something that most will never admit. If people only value you when you're constantly giving, then they never really valued you. They valued what you did, not who you are. The moment you stop, they vanish. And as painful as that realization is, it's also your liberation. Because from that moment, you stop wasting your soul on spectators and start saving it for people who deserve front row seats. You start living a life that's not built on performance, but on presence. You don't need to justify stepping back. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't owe anyone access to your energy. You don't have to pick up the phone every time it rings. You're not rude for choosing your peace. You're not cold for wanting stillness. You're not difficult for having boundaries. You are wise. You are awake. You are finally remembering that your existence is not a service. It's a force. And forces do not ask for permission to exist. They simply are. Let's go deeper now, into the part that most people avoid, because it strips away the noise and forces them to face something terrifying: themselves. You see, stepping back from the chaos isn't just about saying no to others. It's about finally saying yes to the silence that introduces you to who you really are. Solitude isn't a punishment. It's a revelation. It's the crucible where you melt away everything artificial and confront the raw truth of your being. But most people run from it. They drown themselves in conversations, tasks, social media, and 1,000 little distractions, not because they're busy, but because they're terrified. Because in that silence, in that unfiltered quiet, the voices they've been avoiding get louder. The insecurities, the unresolved pain, the identity crises they've buried under smiles and productivity, they all surface. That's the reason people keep themselves accessible. Not out of love, but out of fear. They fear losing connection, but more than that, they fear hearing the truth about themselves. Because if you don't enjoy your own company, why would anyone else? If you can't stand your own thoughts without noise buffering them, then what kind of foundation have you built for your inner world? When you cut off the external noise, when you pull back from people and stimulation, you're left with the one person you can never escape: yourself. And that's where real transformation begins. Solitude becomes your mirror. It doesn't lie. It shows you all the places you've abandoned yourself. It highlights where your boundaries have been ignored, where your energy has been spent recklessly, where your self-worth has been outsourced to opinions and applause. And slowly, through that confrontation, you start to rebuild. True confidence, real presence, the kind that radiates without saying a word, that's not born in crowded rooms. It's born in that silent space where you learn to validate yourself, where you sit alone and realize that you are whole. You become the eye of your own storm, unshaken by winds because you've built your peace from within. That's the paradox. The more time you spend alone, not in loneliness, but in empowered solitude, the less you need validation, the less you seek constant engagement. And when you stop seeking, something strange happens. People start to seek you because you've become rare. You've become someone who doesn't depend on the room to feel complete, who doesn't chase, who isn't performing. That calm is magnetic. That distance is powerful. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When you step away from the noise, your absence becomes a filter. The ones who were only around to feed on your energy disappear. The ones who truly care stay. Your silence reveals more than your words ever could. It sorts your world without you lifting a finger. And when the dust settles, what's left is something cleaner, quieter, deeper. The energy vampires fall away. The people who only called when they needed something stop calling. And at first, that can feel lonely. But soon you realize it's not loneliness, it's freedom. You're no longer spending your life in maintenance mode, keeping dead relationships on life support. You've cleared the clutter. You've made room for realness. Now let's talk about the next level, something most never master: psychological scarcity. That's right. The strategic withholding of your time, your energy, your presence, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. See, everything that's abundant loses value. That's not cynicism, it's psychology. Think about what you value the most. Is it the thing you can access anytime? Or the thing you had to wait for? The thing that wasn't easy to reach? The thing that cost you patience, effort, attention? Scarcity breeds appreciation. It forces people to slow down, to be intentional. So what happens when you become that scarce resource? When you're not always available, when you're not flooding people with your presence, but showing up purposefully in moments that matter. You become unforgettable. Because now, your presence means something. It has weight. It isn't just noise filling space. It's signal, clear, powerful, intentional, and it shifts the entire dynamic. People start listening differently when you speak less. They lean in, they notice, and more importantly, they respect. Not because you demanded it, but because you modeled it. Because you treated your time like gold. And if you treat it like gold, others follow suit. If you treat it like air, they take it for granted. But here's the thing. This isn't a manipulation tactic. You can't fake it. You can't pretend to be scarce while secretly craving attention. True scarcity only works when it's real. When you don't need to be seen every second. When you're so rooted in your own world, your own growth, your own process, that your energy becomes naturally selective. You stop performing. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing for not answering messages, for not showing up to things that drain you. You start honoring the sacredness of your own rhythm. And when that happens, your entire identity begins to shift. You're no longer someone shaped by external schedules and demands. You're the architect of your own presence. You choose. You decide. You act from stillness, not from panic. That's the difference between reaction and intention, between noise and power. You go from being a pawn to being the board. You're not playing the game. They're playing on your terms now, because you've reclaimed the one thing that can't be faked: self-mastery. Let's talk now about emotional economy, a concept that's as real as any financial system. Your energy is your currency. You either invest it or waste it. Every conversation, every click, every favor, every emotional response, it's a transaction. And most people are bankrupt because they've been giving out loans they'll never be repaid. Pouring into people and situations that never refill them. Spending hours in gossip, in drama, in scrolling, in meaningless cycles that leave them emptier than before. And then they wonder why they feel hollow. Why joy feels like a memory. Why their spark is dim. It's not burnout from working hard. It's burnout from emotional bankruptcy. You need to start budgeting your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. You don't have unlimited reserves. And when you deplete them trying to please people, trying to keep up with a pace you didn't choose, trying to fill every silence with noise, you lose your edge. You become dull, tired, reactive. You stop being strategic and start surviving. But here's the truth. When you reclaim your emotional economy, you become powerful again. You stop bleeding energy. You start making deposits where it matters. You become sharper, calmer, more magnetic, not because you're doing more, but because you're doing less, with more focus. Now combine that with narrative autonomy. That means you stop living in the story others wrote for you. You stop defining your worth by how needed you are. You stop defining success by how full your calendar looks. You rewrite the script. You decide what matters. You become the author of your own time, your own presence, your own legacy. And that, more than any affirmation, is the real path to peace. Because peace isn't something you stumble into. It's something you choose, something you fight for, something you guard with silence, with boundaries, with fierce clarity. Think of the people you most admire, not the loud ones, not the ones constantly online, constantly talking, but the ones who show up with power, who don't say much, but when they do, it cuts through the noise. That's not accidental. That's built. That's curated through restraint, through solitude, through the conscious decision to not be everywhere, to let their absence say what their words don't need to. That's the kind of impact that lingers, the kind of presence that doesn't fade when the conversation ends. Now ask yourself this. If you disappeared today, what echo would you leave? Would people feel the silence of your absence, or would the noise of the world drown it instantly? That's the brutal question, because the answer tells you whether you've been present with power or just present out of habit, whether your life has depth or just noise, whether your presence has meaning or just frequency. You want to be remembered? Then be rare, be intentional. Be silent when everyone's shouting. Be grounded when everyone's rushing. Show up less, but when you do, bring fire. Don't be predictable. Don't be always on. Don't be available like an app. Be human. Be sovereign. Be someone who chooses presence, not performs it. And if you've made it this far, I know you're not like the rest. There's a fire in you, maybe buried, maybe flickering, but it's there. And this is your moment to stoke it. Not with more effort, but with more clarity, with the decision to pull back, not out of fear, but out of power, to conserve, not out of laziness, but out of wisdom, to protect your energy like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. So here's your final challenge. Let your silence be your message. Let your absence speak volumes. Let your distance build curiosity. Let your boundaries command respect. And let your presence, when you choose to give it, be unforgettable. Because that's how legacies are built. Not in noise, but in the echoes left behind.